This video is done in Scotland on the mouth-shy horse from abuse. He was badly abused about the mouth. When they were trying to bridle him, they used to pinch his nose until he couldn't breathe. He'd open his mouth and they'd put the bridle in. That's what the trainer did to him. So the first thing I had to do was teach him how to drop his head by putting one hand on his pole, one hand on his nose, which he already knew, and then he would drop his head down. That'd be the first step I would need to do in solving the mouth-shy horse from abuse. And then you can see where I start trying to put my hands around his mouth, and there he starts tossing his head way up in the air. So I'm just going to keep my hands up there as best as I can until he starts dropping his head to where I can put my hands on his nose, and there he does better. Again, he was horribly abused by the trainer, where they used to squeeze his nose to bridle him, and then he would open his mouth and slip the bridle in and slip it over his ears. So I'm just going to keep my hands up there. He's going to walk around me. I'm just going to keep my hands there, and when he brings his nose down, I will take my hands away. There in this picture, this frame, he's let me put my hands on his muzzle now, but he's still not sure, because he's still not sure what my intentions are, which my intentions are to get him over his fears from the abuse that he has suffered. This was done in Scotland on my Crib-Free World Tour, which I had a great time in, and that was only one of the countries that I stopped in. So there he's let me put my hands on his muzzle, and he's doing a lot better. And now I'm going to drop his head and do it again. I'm going to say, hey, I want your head at this level now, by putting one hand on his pole, one hand is on his nose. He drops his head, then I'll put my hand back around his muzzle, like I'm doing now. And he's starting to get the idea that all I want to do is put my hands on his muzzle right now. So he'll drop his head and he'll be comfortable with it. If he's not comfortable with it, I'm not going to be able to bridle him. I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot with him. So he's doing better here. I'm just going to keep it up, let him know that, there's nothing to fear. And then here, I'm going to start sticking my fingers in his mouth. I'm going to drop his head. And he's not too happy about me wanting to put my thumb in his mouth, which you have to do in order to bridle him so he opens his mouth. So we're going to work with this for a little bit. And then I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to lift his head back up. I'm going to put my thumb in his mouth and massage his muzzle, so he understands that I'm not here to hurt him. We're just going in baby steps right now. And then I'm going to lean down and put my hands on his muzzle, and he did really good. So now I'm going to go back to sticking my thumb or a finger in his mouth to let him understand that's okay, and he does really good there, where he didn't throw his head up as high. And then I'm going to go ahead and walk him around, take him out of the situation, and then bring him back, and this will help him clear his mind a little bit, and then bring him back to work again. So I'm going to stick my finger in his mouth. He wants to throw his head up a little bit, but it's not going so high I can't get my finger in his mouth, and I'm going to try to keep it there until he lowers his head a little bit without getting bit. And there he does better. He's doing really good there. Now we're going into about 45 minutes, and I got the bit in my hand, and all I want to do is put my hand down there with the bit in my hand and make sure he's going to be all right with it. And he, is not too happy about it, and he keeps trying to avoid the bit, which is understandable from the abuse he went through. But again, I'm going in baby steps, and I'm going to keep my hand there until he brings his head down and he's quiet with his head. And it's just going to go in little steps here. He says, I remember this from when people were beating on me and plugged my nose where I couldn't breathe. I opened my mouth and I slipped the bit in. So now I'm showing him, hey, that's not the case. And there he does really good. I'm showing him the bit, and he's doing really well with it. And I'm just putting it by his mouth until he's nice and quiet, and there he's nice and quiet. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop his head again. I do have the lead rope in my hand. I loop the lead rope to where I can slide the lead rope into his mouth. And it's a pre-step before bridling him. So if the if the lead rope bumps his mouth while I'm putting it in like I would do a bridle, it's not going to hurt him. Then I go over one ear and over the other, and we practiced this for quite a while. I went to the lead rope so it wouldn't hurt him if he threw his head up. Now I'm going to go to the bridle. Final step is the bridle. And I'm just going to hold my hand down there where the bit goes, and I'm going to keep going with him until I have his head down. He accepts the bridle, or the bit right there. He threw his head up a little bit, but not too bad. Then we go over one ear, then the other, and that's how I get him over mouth shyness from the abuse he's gone through. If you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to my YouTube page to see new videos as they come out. Thank you.